Hello there, thanks for joining us. I'm Ernest Mino, and let's settle for the details now. There's growing concern about the rate of spread of COVID-19 in Ghana after President Akufo-Addo revealed last night that one person was responsible for the spreading of the virus to more than 530 others in a fish factory at Tema. That's the case of the first identified super spreader in Ghana's fight against COVID-19. Let's listen to this.
As of Wednesday, 6th May, a total of 135,902 tests had been conducted, with our country's total number of confirmed cases standing at the time at 3,091, with 303 recoveries and, sadly, 18 deaths. On Thursday, 7th May, 14,046 more tests were conducted, and this included the clearing of the last set of backlogs. Our total confirmed cases then rose to 4,012 positives, i.e. 921 new cases. Our recoveries stood at 323, 8 persons were critically ill, and deaths still at 18. It is important to stress that 533 out of the 921 new cases recorded between last Wednesday and Thursday are factory workers from a fish processing factory located in Tema. All 533 persons were infected by one person.
Now, this morning, contact tracing is beginning for all the contacts made by the super spreader and the 533 persons he had infected in the factory. But how big an issue is this situation at the fish factory to the spread of COVID-19 across the country? Virologist Dr. John Amwesi gave this indication on Newsfile.
Thanks for that, Samson. I like the way you journalists are able to latch on to stuff and, but no, that statement, yeah, it's an important statement I made there because of a couple of things, and I'll explain. Now, if you look back at this epidemic globally, we had the concerns with the Diamond Princess cruise ships that had infections aboard. And the Diamond Princess cruise ship was that one place that helped a lot globally to establish some estimate of what their reproductive number was. This was because you had a well-defined, not only well-defined, but also a confined population within which you could measure the spread of the disease and even map out the levels of mobility and so on. We have seen this kind of picture also repeat itself and be used in other places. For example, in the US, at the meat packaging plants, Tyson meat packaging plants, where you had in some plants over 14% of the workers coming down positive with coronavirus. There are 3 places where we tend to aggregate and associate very closely for a relatively long period of time. One is at home, the second place is during our commute, and the third place is at work. So if we now have data which shows a fairly well-described population, which is a population of factory workers in an industrial site, over 1,300, I thought it was 1,500, but he said 1,300 plus. And we have 533, that is well over 1/3, falling ill. It should tell you what the reality of exposure and risk of infection is. And you can use that as a fair proxy of what the rate of spread would be within a community when there's one infected person. All you need to establish among those factory workers would be how many people were initially infected, who was the index case, or who were the first few cases. And then you look at the amount of time they spent together and the proximity they had with each other. And with that, you could even measure what your real rate of spread is. So I think this is really indicative of the reality. But I need to throw in a caveat there. The good thing here, again, is that this has been picked up quickly. What that means is that we know these people, they'll be isolated, and they'll be treated. So it should not surprise you at all if the mortality from this now cohort of factory workers will be 0. And that's exactly what you want. You want to be able to detect your cases early, quickly. This is exactly what Germany has been able to do, and so far Ghana is doing, but we need to change the gears quickly. Germany has just as many infections as France, and yet less than 1/3 the level of mortality, or barely 1/3 the level of mortality as France. What is making the difference? It's the rate of testing, which allows you to detect very quickly and therefore to intervene among those who are positive. And remember, a greater majority will be asymptomatic. So it should tell you that we need to now move into a mass testing regime. I'm not in a right position to speak about our capacity to do that, but from what I understand, this is being worked on to increase the testing capacity. We have even developed in-house antibody antigen reaction test kits here at KNUST, which are being tested by the FDA. I don't know the outcomes of that. So there's a lot of activity around this. I don't know the full detail, but this is where the pressure should be put, because as for the rate of infections, it most likely will go up, and therefore you need to continue with the things we've talked about, the hand washing, the mask, and so on and so forth. But that only takes you to a certain point.
And so you have there Dr. John Amwesi, who is a virologist. Let's go onto the lines now and speak to the president of the NGOs in health for some perspective on this. Gabriel Banaku joins us on the phone. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on News Deck. So we first want to start with the super case in Tema, for want of a better expression. You have one person infecting 533 people. How does that come to you? Your initial impression when you heard this? Hello, Mr. Banaku.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Banaku. Thank you for joining us here on Newsdex.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Banaku. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great.
Raise your voice.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsdex. So I want us to do some analysis on the figures that are coming in. Currently, we are standing at 4,700 as far as the case count is concerned. We have a case in Tema where one person has infected 533 people. I wonder what your reaction was when you heard this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to your viewers. I think it is very worrisome, and that is why if you look at the Ghana Coalition of NGOs, our surveys and our submissions, we have always advocated for a progressive lockdown. After the lifting of the partial lockdown, we also recommended that we should impose much more restrictions in the region. That has been very slow. We also observed that the municipal and district assembly's role has not been much more effective in terms of restricting people, ensuring that people observe social distancing in lorry parks and the market centers, and even just seeing people moving around without doing any productive thing. That effort must be intensified now. Otherwise, we could have more than what we are experiencing, even though government is doing progressive testing. But we are human animals. We are not just human beings. So what our instincts tell us is what we will do. So we move a lot than even what is being happened. So I think that we are doing well, we are still doing well, but we need to double the effort of using the 6 strategies that Ghana has adopted. That is the social distancing. In fact, I have always advocated that we need to have a law, not just giving directives, but we need to have a law and ensure that law enforcement really enforce people's movement and gathering. We still observe that people are not practicing the social distancing effectively. The issue of the use of the mask, we also advocate that it should be proper and consistent use of the mask. You meet people on the street and they hold their mask in their pocket or is on their neck, thinking that they will have to get into an enclosed place before they can use it, which still put people in the vulnerability status. So one case leading to over 500 is not palatable at all. What it just simply tells us that we are beginning to slip. Our effort is being stagnated, and we need to be much more proactive than before.
Well, we've been made to understand that all the measures that are put in place are actually subject to review. What we cannot tell is whether or not there will be any form of a lockdown going forward. But with the issue of the face mask, for instance, you see some security officials, the police especially in town, enforcing it. But like you said, it's not widespread. But the issue of the recoveries have also come up. And the president did indicate yesterday that we have a little over 500, I think, recoveries now. Should that be something we should be worried about? That is just about 10% of the case that we have.
Yeah, it's even less than 10% recovery, but let's take it mathematically, we can run it up to 10%. And it's certainly not very palatable. We've seen that if you look at the records currently available, and based on government is saying the treatment is ongoing, we have the treatment, we have developed the treatment protocol. If we are getting less than 1,000 out of the 4,700, then it means that we need to look back into our treatment. The other issue is that information is not forthcoming. Over the last 2 weeks, we have advocated for the mutual information. For that matter, the presidential advisor assured Ghanaians that he was going to ensure that information are timely. We are not seeing the timely information being released, and that can make people very irritating and very anxious. That can lead to depression of those people affected and their families. So we think that if only that is the exact record, then it means that our treatment is not responding well.
And so you think that we should revise the treatment method? And especially, I want you to look at this within the context that we have a lot of the cases being asymptomatic, and we're told by the Ghana Health Service that quite a number of them, significant number of these numbers or cases are being treated at home. Should we revise that? Should we have a case where every person who is infected would spend at least some minimum time at the treatment center?
You see, Ghana, we started doing well, and sometimes I have issues with the advisors to the president. Sometimes we are doing well, and before you realize, they give another strategy that try to undo all the gains we have made. If we had progressively done the partial lockdown, we would have stopped the virus by now. Now, when the president lifted the partial lockdown and instituted the state strategies, yeah, we louder, but we said, if you notice, 3 weeks ago, we warned that then you need to double your investment and logistical support for the state strategy. And one of them is when you trace and test, or when you are tracing, you know human beings are lazy if you don't supervise. Then you leave people at their very home without putting in the proper mechanism. Then they have the opportunity to move around. So all that we need to do is we should review some of those protocols that are not working well. If people are at home and they are not working, let's compare scientifically. As government, let us believe that they are working within science. If they are working within science and data, what they need to do is that those who have quarantine, how fast are they responding to treatment? And those who are quarantined in their personal home, self-quarantine, how effective is that working? They need to show us the data to tell us that those who are self-quarantine, this is the rate of improvement. Those who are mandatory quarantine at the health facility, this is the improvement. And then we can move from there. Otherwise, it's not giving us a clear picture. Sometimes you get confused about how the whole thing is being managed. But it shouldn't be a case that the thing is try to keep some information to themselves and then try to let the public begin to wonder, and that can also cause the fear and panic as they keep on talking about. So I think that they should provide statistics on those who have been home quarantined. How fast are they responding to treatment? And how are they responding to the guidelines at home, vis-a-vis those who have been properly quarantined to provide treatment? How effective is that one, and how are they responding to treatment? And that record should be shown for every Ghanaian. And in fact, it should be published for just like what they are doing on the cases. If we do that, then we can all have that confidence in some of the strategies. But I do know that the best strategy for us to do is to restrict people when they are suspected. And let them go through the protocol.
And so, just as we wrap up on this, Mr. Benaku, I don't know what you make of the move to have Madagascar, release some of its local treatments, so-called, for the FDA's assessment and for subsequent use. What do you make of that?
A month ago, I openly declared that Ghana could have our own local vaccine or treatment regimen. We have, over the years, allowed people to tell us how we should do. And I cited an example that in Ghana, we have vaccine for malaria treatment. And our scientists have proven beyond reasonable doubt that they are capable of helping us to have a local way of responding to our health challenges. All that we need is to invest into research. We also need to collaborate with other countries like Madagascar. And fortunately, all the issues, all the medicinal properties of Madagascar, we already have there in Ghana. And so it is just a matter of using part of the fund that has been created to support research and development of those treatment regimen that we have, including vaccines. And we actually need to domesticate our local response strategy, as government has always shown an impression that we are domesticating our strategy. If really we are domesticating our strategy, then government should open up to allow our local scientists to support the domestication of the local production of vaccine, medicine, or any treatment that we may have, and that we can also become a health tourism center for the rest of the world.
And just what would be your assessment of how do your ratings be, I should say, of the work that has been done so far? We are told by the president that the WHO has invited Ghana to throw more light on the pooling method that we are using for our testing. That must be some good news and an indication that we are doing well. Would you not agree?
Yeah, we have rated the Ghana response at 8/10. We are still by that. We have done the research over the last 2 weeks. Actually, tomorrow we will have an official press release for the media across the country. We have conducted surveys in over 25 regional centers, including some West African markets within Ghana. We have observed and we have collected data that shows how Ghana is responding to the social distancing and the use of the mask. We will publish that report that can really inform government about what they are doing. If Ghana government improve on the strategy and the logistical support, we could move from the 80 by our assessment to 85 or 90%, and that would be a great thing. The other issue that I believe WHO have used is that civil society in the country has played pivotal role, major role in one, education, suppliers, advocacy in influencing policies on how government should move into direction and play a watchdog role. So all that are complementary efforts that is helping Ghana to reach this far. All that we will say is that we recognize WHO technical competence, but we also do recognize that there are still gray areas that Ghana will need to reinforce and consolidate the gains we are making.
Mr. Benako, I'm thankful that you joined us here on News Desk. Let's go onto the phone lines again and speak to Dr. Samuel Kaba, and he is in charge of the treatment center at the Ga East, and indeed has some role to play as far as COVID-19 is concerned in the Accra region. Dr. Kaba, thank you for your time here on News Desk. I want us to start on this note. We know that some of the patients are in isolation or in quarantine at home. What can you tell us about their recoveries and how they are responding to treatment, those patients who are at home?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Kaba.
Everybody listening to us. Let me rectify some few things I heard you say. I'm actually not in charge of the Ga East Center.
Okay.
I'm one of the leading members of the case management for Ghana Health Service and the director of Institutional Care Division. So when it comes to Ghana Health Service, I kind of responsible for most of the treatment centers and the Ghana Health Service.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
And at the lockdown period, I actually coordinated the activities of the laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
So, and let me say this. I do understand why so many people are worried about our recovery rate, but there are some few things we need to really understand, and everyone will be on the same page. One is the way we do the testing, which everybody now knows that when you get positive in Ghana, confirmed, you have to wait for 14 days. Then after that, we do one test negative, then the second test, and until we get the two tests negative, we will not declare you recovered. Everybody knows that now,
yes.
Which I think is a good news, and I think it's a standard we want to establish, and based on the advice and from WHO and other countries that are also doing that. Now, the second thing is this.
Before you move on, Dr. Kaba, just some quick information on that. When you test negative for the first time, how long does it take to have the second test done?
Here's the point. You stay with us for 14 days.
14 days.
So the 14, we do the first test.
Okay.
If it's negative, 24 hours later, we do the next test because it's a serial thing.
There you are.
So you do one on the 14th. If it's negative, the next day, 15th, we do the next one, right? There should be 24 hours. It's a serial thing. So, and that is exactly where I want us to all go to, and so that people will be very calm when it comes to recovery. I'll use a typical example, like what happened with the latest cases that we've been able to confirm, the 500 and over cases.
Yes.
Now, those 500 and over cases, none of them will be declared negative until minimum the next 17 days, which means that they will be kept for 14 days. The 14 will do one test, the 15 will do the next. So let's say we receive the results by the 16th and the 17th before we can say they are recovered, which also means that we have to be patient and wait till at least a minimum. Anytime someone is confirmed, at least we have a minimum of 16 days to say the person has recovered, because when you consider the test done. So if we are expecting that these 500 people will contribute directly into our recoveries within the next 1 week, it might not be so. So people need to understand that time frame that we keep the people. COVID is one of the things that requires a lot of patience when it comes to treatment and recovery using this kind of standard. So until the next 14, 15, 16 days time, we will not be talking of recovery of those people. So they will be contributing less. So although our figure is not rising, there will be a day that if we have isolated, I'm just giving an example, if we isolate 100 people today as I talk to you, the same day, those 100 people that we isolate this very day, until 14 days time, when we do the first test, then 15 days we do the next test, that which means we will get the results on the 16th, because 14th you get the result 15th, 15th you get the result 16th, right? Let's say if it's all things being equal, no delays. If then it means that we shouldn't be expecting these people to contribute to recoveries until this time period. So when we don't see our recoveries on a very frequent way, this explains why. And there might be some time you might see that about 50 people have recovered all because they were all seen at one particular time, and they all came out negative after this particular time.
That is understood. What we want to know is that we know that we have some patients who are being treated at home. We want to know how they are responding to treatment as compared to those in other treatment centers. And how are you ensuring that these people are indeed in isolation and are observing the rules?
Oh, I think that there are some few things I want to clarify here.
Very well.
As much, when COVID is one thing I keep telling everyone, that it distracts everybody's attention. And it needs constant evaluation and constant change of the game. In a sense that sometimes you start with certain things, and then with the information you get on the ground, you change your plan. So when we actually started this, we were talking about home care, and we're talking about having people in the health facilities. What we got to know was that depending on the people that we were dealing with, some were able to do home care and some were not able to do home care. So before we could say that, yes, we agree for you to do home care, we used to go with you to your house with a checklist. We look around, we all agree with you, and then we agree whether you do your home care or not. We assign a doctor to you and takes your parameters on daily basis. At least they speak with you twice. The game has changed. We are now talking about thousands and thousands of people. And we have also now seen that those who come to the hospital, they get to recover very fast as compared to those who do home care. That's what our figures have spoken to us. So when we look at it, we stop encouraging home care and we start to encourage more of hospital care. But we also realize that if you want everyone to be in the hospital and we want to use our regular health facilities, then we'll be collapsing the health system. And that is why we've designated hospitals just for COVID-19. And I must say thanks so very much to the Pentecost group. I mean, that is incredibly something that I will keep praising. They gave us that Pentecost Center at which has a capacity of over 1,000 people at the Gomoa Fete place. And that has also helped to change the game. Then you can actually isolate as many people as possible and put them in and the treatment as early as possible. So as we talk, we have discouraged the issue of home care. We are encouraging more, and we want everyone at least to come to us. We will look at the situation, we will assess the situation with the person, which has to do with the person's state, which has to do with the person's ability to actually do the home care, and which has to do with the treatment available. And we consider so many things before we now decide that, okay, you actually can do it or not. But the majority of the people we are having, we prefer to have them in health facilities because the recovery rate is higher. They tend out to recover very quickly, and we want to keep encouraging people being hospitalized.
My understanding of what you're saying is that you are not encouraging home care as much as possible. You'd have people treated at the various treatment centers, but
Absolutely.
As we speak, we have some few people who are still being treated at home because you think that their condition would allow that.
That is, if they had already started before we changed, we switched a little bit when we started getting our data telling us that those in home care are not recovering. They take more time because you test the.
So what it means is that as we speak, home care is not an option anymore.
It's not an option that we really want to encourage. Let me not say anymore because in COVID you cannot be absolute with everything that you want. You always have to leave that margin to be able to deal with the situation. Because if I now tell you absolute, then somebody will say, no, but I know this person is doing it at home. But let's understand that we started from that and we are changing. And we have a transition period. In any change you are doing, you always have the transition period. Some people will get caught up in that middle. And you got to finish with them. You can't say, oh, because you took this decision, then it's from today, it's like this, and everybody. So we have that transition period. And we are encouraging as much as possible, not only here in Accra, in all the regions, that people should be seen in the health facilities.
Dr. Kaba, I want us to look at the Tema situation. Quite alarming, 533 people infected by one person. What is the strategy for that area, for Tema? Some have suggested that for some days or a week, the entire region, Tema area, should be on some form of a lockdown or some aggressive testing within, or mass testing within the area. Is this something you are considering?
All right, so we are actually developing a lot of strategies to address that, and very soon the leadership of the COVID team in Ghana will come out with something concrete on that. I wouldn't want to take things upon myself to say things that I would prefer the leadership to come out to do that, because one of the things I actually want to assure you and all the listeners is that immediately we got that hint, immediately we had the first cases coming out positive, we took certain steps and certain decisions already that, look, this thing, it can't go beyond, it can't overwhelm our health facilities. And that's what we've been doing all this time, to make sure that we never get overwhelmed. So some strategies exactly are being put in place to address it. And at the appropriate time, you will be more than glad to know what is being done, because everybody will get.
Finally, before you take leave of us, just last week, the director of the Ghana Health Service, your boss, said that we have about 36 or 37 treatment centers across the country. Are they all full?
No, what is happening is that some of the treatment centers we have people, some not. Depend, as I said, people come in series sometimes, and then they get treated. After that, they go home. And if you see the incident rate in all the regions are not the same. So not all the regions are having super great numbers. And so definitely we have spaces, and we are even searching for more spaces like that, the kind of Pentecost. I'll use your platform to also call on other religious and philanthropists or people who can actually also help with more facilities. Because in COVID, the more you get for isolation, the better. Then we'll keep our health facilities for regular cases, for regular patients, so that we don't start having people who fear to go to our health facility, because they think that if they go to the health facility, they will meet COVID-19. So we are working hard on that.
Dr. Samuel Kaba, we want to thank you so much for your time this morning on Newsdesk. And he is Director, Institutional Care Division of the Ghana Health Service, bringing us some more update on recoveries, on treatment. And we should expect some announcements on the strategy for the Tema area following that spreading of COVID-19 to 533 people. Now, as we speak about the treatment centers, the project manager of what will become Ghana's first 100-bed infectious disease isolation and treatment facility, Kofi Esel Apia, says they are halfway through the construction of the project, which is expected to take 6 weeks. Now, he has been speaking with my colleague Maxwell Aduda on the progress of work.
We are at the Ghana East Municipal Hospital, which is also the site for a new. We understand that the first time you're having an infectious treatment and isolation center here. Work is progressing steadily. You remember that when this project was launched, we were told within 6 weeks it should be ready. And from a layman's perspective, yeah, it's progressing, steadily. But we're hearing from the experts who are working here. This is the brainchild of the Ghana National COVID-19 Private Sector Fund. They are putting resources together to make this possible. And lucky to have here with us one of the experts here. He's an architect. He's also the project manager here. His name is Kofi Esel Apia. He's joining me here to have a conversation on how far we've come with this project here. So, you're welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to receive you here on site. We are right in the middle of our program.
Wow.
And then looking forward to the last stretch. Work is going on feverishly on different levels, as you can see in the background. Finishes are just about starting in other areas, and right behind you is being preparation made for landscaping features that we'll be receiving very soon.
Wow.
Yes, it is a very tight program, but we are still doggedly looking at at the period that we've set out for us. So we've done a little over the 3-week period, and we are driving into the last half of what we have ahead of us.
Wow. So when this project was launched, we're told that within 6 weeks, it should be ready. In your own estimation, at what level of the project are we right now?
So we are about halfway through the project.
Oh, halfway?
Yes. So all the foundations are finished. Walls are up and are being treated at different levels. And you can see finishes is being done on this side. If you have an opportunity to see what is happening in there, plastering is being done. The walls have been erected. A few challenges here and there, but we are still moving aggressively towards that.
Okay. So what makes this infectious facility, treatment facility, different from other health facilities that we know?
One, it's an infectious disease center. We don't have any like this in Ghana. So it has a special air conditioning system with negative pressure, all in a bid to control the outbreak of diseases and to stop reinfection. Secondly, this facility is designed strategically to protect our medical staff as much as possible. We've seen from other examples in other countries, high casualties in medical staff. The very nature of the design seeks to protect our medical personnel.
Okay, so can we talk about the materials that are being used, from the construction? Are they prefabricated materials, or what exactly do you call them?
Yes, it is an EPS system. It's a prefabricated material, as you can see. It has the polystyrene in the middle, and then we have the metal mesh right in there, and it's concrete on either side. So there's a system called shotcreting, which is being done now, and it's done in a fairly short time. You apply it on it, and then you wrap to finish. So that's the system that we are using on site now.
Okay, so that makes the work a bit easier and faster.
Yes.
Okay.
These boards can be carried easily by 2 men. You can carry a large piece. It's about 4 meters long, and then put it in place, and then anchor it and start your work. It's a treatment center with an ICU portion, and then it also in itself it operates within. It has all the facilities to ensure that there is treatment for mild, moderate, and some ICU cases. So there is a very competent lab, a level 2 lab in here, which can do the tests instantly and that kind of stuff. That's what we're doing. Modern facilities for this.
Okay. And it's going to be a 100-bed facility.
Yes, a little over 100 beds.
A little over 100. Okay.
Yes. So let me do some introductions. Where's Rutan?
Okay, sure.
Yes. So let me introduce you to. Yes. This is Fifi.
Okay.
Samawachi. Yes.
Great.
He is my deputy, and he's also the project coordinator here. And so this is Ian Agbenyiga. Fifi is an architect. Yes, and Ian is a surveyor. These are key people in ensuring that the supply chain is actually effective. Fast-track projects require that, and he's the anchorman in that area.
Oh, that's it. And those who are doing the construction itself, we are told some of them are from the military?
Yes, the military is backing this project solidly. The military provides a covering to the project in many ways, and indeed have some of their staff working with us. And there are some guys we have some military architects and engineers who are part of the team, and then we also have some of them who are actually working on the ground as supervisory staff. This project does a 24/7 job, so it doesn't go for break.
Wow.
And so at night, if you came here at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you'd see work going on, and the military is key to that. There's an infrastructure here where we house even some workers on the site. They are key to ensuring that we are compliant with the safety measures in a time like this, with the proper gear, and making sure that the necessary protocols are observed. You would observe when you came in, you'd be stopped by the military, and you'd go through the temperature taking and all the things that are important in a time like this.
So as a project manager, do you want to say something?
Yeah, and also this project started during the time of the lockdown. So moving materials and logistics around the military played a major role in making sure we could get things to the site and organize ourselves. Yeah, right.
Wow. He also spoke about the fact that both environment professionals came together to do this. We have the Ghana Institution of Surveyors, which I represent with my 4 other colleagues, Surveyor Obina UAB, Surveyor Benjamin Labi, Surveyor Franklin Ligi Kudonu, and Surveyor Emmanuel Bentel. We are the strong guys representing the Ghana Institution of Surveyors. And there is this promise on the table too that, you know, the institution has 3 divisions: the land surveyors, the quantity surveyors, and the valuation estate surveyors. The land surveyors come early before the inception of the project to pick up data for the architect and the structural engineers to work with. Along the line, when the project, during the pre-contract and the post-contract, you have the quantity surveyors there to determine the cost and manage the cost. Now, there's this aspect of the institution who are the valuation and estate management surveyors. So they will come in, they have also promised to come in to manage the facility after it's handed over to the client.
Away from that, the Ghana Maritime Authority, regulators of the maritime industry, say they are taking immediate steps to acquire the necessary legal authority that will allow them seize and destroy wooden boats used for illegal fuel business in the coast along the Takoradi enclave. The Director General of the authority, Mr. Thomas Kofi Alonsi, said this when he met with security chiefs at the Western Naval Base. Correspondent Inathala Kwansa reports.
The growing activities of these illegal boats, locally called dindays, is becoming a menace in the Takoradi area. Disguised as fishing boats, these massive wooden vessels, with a storage capacity of tens of thousands of liters and propelled by twin outboard motors, go to the high seas, mostly at night, where criminal tanker ships dock. Tons of fuel is pumped from the tanker into these wooden boats, which sails to different beaches and discharge their content into waiting road fuel tankers on the blind side of tax and other regulatory authorities. This fuel ends up on the market. At the meeting between the Ghana Maritime Authority, the Western Naval Command, and the head of the Marine Police, Mr. Donko Kwabena Jetro, the detachment commander, Naval Intelligence at the Western Naval Command, listed the hindrance in the fight against the illegal fuel trade as leaking of information by security personnel, inadequate funding for the recruitment of informants, and political interference, among others. But Director General of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Mr. Thomas Alonsi, said people with criminal motives and intentions are using the name of politicians to give oxygen to their illegal activities.
Interferences, how do you want to call them? Political interference. These are people who have an interest in the industry. We don't want to hide under some political colorations, but we also know as a security person that crime has no color. Crime has no color. And therefore, once it's a crime, it ought to be isolated and contained, isolated and dealt with as a crime. The law that creates the authority mandates us to fight against these illegal activities. And therefore, we should not be afraid of what some other person thinks or says about our operations. The only time you get frightened or you should be afraid is if you are doing the wrong thing. And as much as you are doing what is right or what is required of you by law, I don't think you should be afraid of persons who have an interest in these illegal activities. So we rest assured that some of the information that we have also gathered here.
The head of the Ghana Maritime Authority at Takoradi, Captain Williams E. Thompson, explained that some of the ships engaged in criminal fuel trade are not only unseaworthy, but also sometimes carry unwholesome products into the country. Captain Thompson said the GMA, together with the Navy, the Takoradi Port, the Marine Police, and National Security, has instituted night patrols on Ghana's waters. This has led to some arrest of ships and wooden boats engaged in illegal bunkering.
The Maritime Authority, in collaboration with the Marine Police and then the Ghana Navy, we carry out all-night patrols of our anchorages every day. So on one of our patrols, we found the ship at our anchorage. And we know from history that these type of vessels come in here and do illegal bunkering. They come and hang out there. Wooden crafts called dindes go alongside, and then they put oil on, and then it comes ashore. So we went on board. You know, we could not just have arrested them. So we went on board and checked their documentation. Then we realized that first, their officers did not have proper certificates to be able to sail the vessel. Secondly, they did not have the adequate travel documents like passport and other things. So that gave us a cause to arrest the ship and bring it in. This was close to midnight. Essentially, they are bringing in smuggled finished products to come and sell on the market. Some of them are not of the quality that is approved by our regulators.
For Joy News, in Athalia Kwanza, Western Region.
And you're watching News Text with me, Anas Mini. We're taking a short break. When we return, we'll bring you more stories. Please stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us here on News Desk. We take you live to Parliament now, where the Appointments Committee is vetting some nominees to the Supreme Court. And you have there in your shot Justice Onyenuga, an appeals court judge, and he is very popular with the Justice for All program. Let's go there live now.
And I believe with some of these measures, public education and others, the banks involved, our security at the borders, especially, we should be able to check money laundering.
Chairman probably just abide and I'll yield to colleagues. Now, fundamental human rights and civil liberties, you would have a duty at that level to preserve and protect those rights. The Constitution provides that an accused person shall be granted bail within 48 hours. Now, if the 48 hours falls to a Saturday or Sunday, what will you do to guarantee respect for the right of the person who is being arrested in respect of that in a criminal trial?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am very glad that there's a decision of the Supreme Court as at now, Martin Pebu, number 3, versus the Attorney General on this matter. And incidentally, it was the immediate past Chief Justice who delivered the lead judgment on this matter. The Supreme Court has now, the Supreme Court in that case gave directives that in order that Article 14(3) of the Constitution is enforced, and then the 48-hour rule should be observed and respected. All the Chief Justice must, within 6 months, enforce the judgment in respect of getting the various courts or some courts in the various regions, the districts, and even in the capital in Accra to sit even on Saturdays and Sundays, so that anybody who is found foul of the law and detained in a police cell, for example, the police should be able to bring that person to court. We all know the practice whereby some of these suspects are detained maybe on a Friday. Then they are kept in the cells until Monday or Tuesday before they are taken to court. Meanwhile, they have infringed their constitutional right under Article 14(3). So far, Mr. Chairman, this is what I can say. My Lord,
are you aware whether the Chief Justice is either the one who gave the ruling or her successor designated any?
His successor, Chief Justice retired Sofa Akufo. She delivered that judgment.
I'm asking whether you know whether any such courts have been designated as yet.
Mr. Chairman, so far I don't know. I don't know.
Very well. So, is the 6 months due, or we still have some time?
I think it's due. We are looking at the date of the judgment.
Very well. So, in your view, how do we ensure that the Chief Justice's directive is enforced?
Well, I think we have maybe some of us can go to our present Chief Justice and maybe remind His Lordship about it. Unfortunately, His Lordship is here, the Chief Justice. He's right here with us, and we think that...
Very well. I'm sure he's hearing us. So.
Yes.
Yes, Honorable Ayaga.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And congratulations on your nomination to the Supreme Court.
Thank you.
Of course, subject to the approval of Parliament. You are being nominated and you are going to the court at a time that the world is confronted by a global pandemic that has created a crisis for society in every respect, economics, politics, and certainly law and administration of justice. The Constitution provides in Article 13 that we should protect everybody's right to life and gives exceptional circumstances under which life can be taken. The prisons, in the context of COVID-19, we all know that congestion is a factor in trying to prevent deaths from COVID-19. Social distancing. Our prisons are congested. What do you think Article 13 of the Constitution means for a prisoner today locked up there in those congested circumstances with the threat that one person could come in there infected and wipe out entire prisons? How would you propose that we treat the situation of prisons in the context of COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I am particularly glad about this question because I have dealt with the prisons for a very long time. I think since 2013, I have been in charge of the Justice for All program, and I have seen the conditions in which the prisoners are. I've been to almost every prison in Ghana. It's a really difficult situation. And it is unfortunate that we are not building new prisons. If you were to build new prisons, then this congestion may not be in place. But unfortunately, you go into these prisons and you have a place meant for about 25 or 30, then you see about 100 or 120. into this prison. And the situation as it is now is very terrible. If this pandemic should get into one of the prison units or the cells, I mean, it could wipe up a whole human beings who are in there, as you said. But I think that the prison authorities have to do something about it. And maybe the state authorities would have to, the president would have to use his prerogative of mercy. And maybe those who are in prison for very minor offenses should be pardoned and released, so that there will be some space for the others who will remain in prison. Because as it is now, it's a very serious situation at hand, and something urgent needed to be done. Fortunately, our Chief Justice has directed that those, if there's a criminal appeal pending before any superior court judge, this person should not be brought to the courtrooms. They should remain there. They shouldn't come. But the appeal will definitely be heard to its logical conclusion. So I think the situation is that there should be a pardon of most of those who have committed misdemeanors, especially, so that there will be some space left. Otherwise, we have a very serious situation at hand. Thank you. She wants to follow.
Okay. Do you think that, given these developments, COVID-19, congestion in the prisons, the president's power to pardon, and I think the president has pardoned some prisoners, if I recall, recently. Do you think that's an additional measure the Chief Justice can initiate a program to ensure that all those who are presently in remand and haven't been convicted yet, unless they are offenses that really we cannot release them, but release them on relatively stringent bail terms, so that at one swoop you can get out as many people as possible? And also, will you propose that Parliament urgently, at the instance of the President and Attorney General, looks through the criminal code and, as much as possible, reduce the length of custodial sentences? Because some of the crimes that do not leave discretion in the judges' hands. So will you also propose that Parliament considers, as a matter of urgency, a thorough review of sentencing provisions in our criminal code, so that we can, in this crisis, because this is a pandemic that has presented a crisis to the economy, to every sector, and to the administration of justice, and we must be seen to be responding to this. What is your take on that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think I perfectly support your honorable suggestion. And I also want to add that under Section 52 of the Courts Act, Act 4059 as amended, the supervising High Court judges have power to vary or review the decisions of the district magistrates, their decisions. So I will also suggest that maybe